discharge forms for me to sign?
He is not a doctor. He's with security. Mrs. Hamilton repeatedly violated hospital policy, so he's here to escort her off the premises.
Oh, you petty. You really called security on me?
Ashley, this is unnecessary.
As unnecessary as elevating a patient's heart rate after a cardiac arrest, and if you fight me on this, Hayley, I will get you permanently banned.
You just gonna let her do this?
Let's go back. It'll be all right, honey. I'll be right behind you.
Hayley got tossed out the hospital today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Fans of Beyond the Gates, the podcast. I'm your host, Sis, and this is our recap review discussion of today's episode for Tuesday, August 18th. Let's jump right to it. So let's go ahead and start with Bill and Hayley. So, of course, they pick us up where they left us off on Monday. You know, Hayley is in Bill's room, and they're talking, and, you know, he's, making, little sexual innuendo type remarks. And he wants her to get in bed with him because he says he is sick and tired, y'all, of being in this hospital room. He's cooped up. He's losing his mind. He's like, I want my bed, my food, my wife. And so Hayley gets in bed with him, and they're snuggling and going on and smooching and going on. And she says, you know what? Oh, this is so comfy. I just might move in. And that's when Shanice opens the door and says, the hell you will. How come Bill's heart monitor was going off on Shanice's tablet, but she had silenced it before she came in the room? So, of course, Shanice goes hard, in the paint, and she tries to explain to them both that, elevating a cardiac arrest patient's heart is not good. Y'all, how come Hayley is like, okay, you are not the boss of me, and Bill is like, Shanice, come on, come on, come on. And she's like, no. And she tells her, get out the bed and put both feet on the floor. And matter of fact, anytime you up in this room, make sure feet stay on the floor. Y'all, Hayley and Bill are not trying to hear it. But Shanice explains that actually, cardiac patients are not supposed to be having any activity, especially of the sexual nature, that could cause them problems. She even says to Hayley, you're going to wind up being a widow, girl. Y'all, how come Hayley up here smirking? So I'm like, okay, so is this going to be Hayley's new plot? Instead of the poison, okay, which has gotten him in the hospital, now she's going to sex him to death? It would be very funny if that were to go, if they were to change the storyline, y'all, to be that, because truth be told, I mean, she can't poison him no more, okay? She can't poison him no more. Everybody's suspicious. They already think she's cheating with Randy and so on and so forth. And so there's only one safe route. She can't put the pillow over his face either. So just sex him, child, until he dies. So we shall see where this goes. Well, Shanice leaves out after warning them, and Hayley gets out of bed with Bill. And so she is happy to hear, right, that, no more sex. And so he's like, you know what? I ain't gonna be celibate up in here. I ain't gonna be celibate in my life. My heart doctor didn't tell me that. And so anyway, so Bill wants an opinion from his heart doctor. So he goes on, y'all, trying to convince Hayley, listen, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Y'all know Bill is scared that if he can't have sex, then Hayley definitely may start having an affair on him. And so guess what, y'all? He convinces her to come on in the bed. And so she gets in there and, pulls the cover over their face, and they're Googling and, all this kind of mess. And so at this point, y'all, Ashley has come on duty for her shift. And so Shanice brings her up to speed with who needs what. And then she tells her what went on with Hayley and Bill and how she almost had to break up them doing the you-know-what. And so Ashley's like, please, let's not put that image in my head, okay? Why didn't you wait until the middle or the end of my shift to traumatize me? And so as Shanice says, listen, I got to go meet Ted up at the Orphegenes, right? She leaves, and how come Bill's heart monitor starts going off again on Ashley's tablet? So she says to him, okay, Mr. Hamilton, I can be just as difficult, or just as mean. She goes in the room, she sees them all boot up, and she's putting the tablet over her eyes. Oh my gosh, stop it. And y'all, Bill is like, what? Why y'all keep busting in? Were any of you like me today? I'm like, Bill actually thinks he's at home. He's actually asking a nurse, why you running up in my room without asking my permission? It's like, Bill, yes, it's your room because you're paying for it, but you're in the hospital, okay? These folks can come in at any time. They don't have to let you know. They don't have to give you notice. And so, y'all, Ashley and Ashley and Hayley get into it. Ashley even says to her at one point, you know what, I'm just doing my job. Like the one you barely got a job. She makes one of those little remarks. And Hayley's like, you know what, just because you are Naomi's mousy best friend, okay? And she goes on to tell her off. And they get into it where Bill says, you know what, I want out of here, okay? Basically, ring up my doctor so I can get get the opinion on me going home. Enough is enough. And so Hayley's like, yeah, me too. We need to get up out of here. And so, you know what? Ashley says, you know what? Better still, I got an idea. She goes over there to the phone in the room and she calls somebody and she says, could you come in here, please? And that's where we pick it up with the clip I just played. They thought she was calling Bill's doctor, but she was calling security. Now, Hayley goes to this elevator. The security guy is trailing right behind her, and Ashley comes and she says, I'm sorry I had to embarrass you, but, basically you were violating policy. But y'all, Hayley is still acting. She's still on her Academy Award, trail, and she says to her, you know what? All of y'all who's trying to keep me and Bill apart ain't gonna work. I'm gonna be with him until the day he dies, or till the day he takes his last breath. So, yeah. And that's when the elevator door closes. Let's go ahead and continue now with Shanice, because as I was sharing, she left the hospital to go meet Ted up at the Orphegenes. I already know what some of you expected, because Ted was, I'm trying not to go there. Excuse me, just a second. Whew. Take it in for 3, let it out for 4. Okay, what I was going to say is I know, because some of you seen the show and you know that Ted was so messy today, y'all, it wasn't even real. When I tell you I talk so much at the TV, I scream, get Ted off my screen. Ted was so I know you thought I was going to start with that. But you see how much better I've gotten? Sure, I still have to take breaks to breathe and to woosah, but that's just the way it is. But anywho, so let's talk about what happened up at the Orphegenes. So before Shanice and Ted get there, Leslie and Eva are there, y'all. And they are there just getting caught up. That's the whole purpose of them sitting there. And Eva's saying to her mama, I really don't appreciate you running to Dad. Y'all know how she says it, Dad, to tell him, about my, the fact that I've been really struggling with my body and since the surgery. Well, it wasn't like I was gossiping, Leslie tells her. He's your father, and I was telling it to somebody who loves you more than life, and he's a plastic surgeon. And Eva was like, yeah, but Mama, basically, I was just talking to you. And here's what I was thinking, y'all. If Eva don't know by now that she can't trust her mom, I really don't know what else. I feel like Eva, just like Eva said to Leslie today, Mama, why don't you quit, chasing men who are unavailable to you, who just keep hurting you? I feel like Eva's doing the same thing, except with her mom, meaning she's chasing the version of her mother she wishes her mom was, an upstanding, honest, woman. And that's just not who her mom is, even after the surgery, okay? And so she's always trying to chide her, correct her, explain something to her. And it's like, and I feel like, and I know some of you feel the same way, I feel like every time I am watching a scene with Leslie and her daughter, it's the same conversation all the time. It's Eva. It's like, when will Eva get to the point where she realizes Leslie is not changing? And if she does, it's not going to be because something happened to you. Because, like, girl, you almost dying didn't change her, right? Ted basically telling her weeks ago, from our vantage point, it's never going to happen between us. That didn't change her either. And so it's just really crazy that, Eva keeps hurting herself and she keeps getting disappointed over and over and over because she has unrealistic expectations of her mother instead of accepting her for who she is. And I know what some of you are going to say, well, she does accept her. No, she doesn't. Because when you accept someone, when I accept someone for who they are, we don't try to keep changing them. Anytime a person keeps trying to encourage somebody to be better, encourage them to change, they have not accepted them just as they are. And so anyway, so they were sitting there, like I said, getting caught up. Eva even says to her, I'm so happy Isaiah's made a big difference in how I feel about my body. He's let me know that that he's going to always be there for me. And Leslie is very, happy to hear that. But then Eva turns the table. She says, what's going on with you and Marcel, Mama? And she's like, we learned something. Marcel is actually divorced. Now, they may have said this before. I remember Marcel telling us he was getting a divorce, but what I'm saying now is he's actually divorced. And so I didn't know that he had actually gotten divorced, because they had been telling us for weeks he was going to get a divorce. So anyway, but then Eva makes a great point. But Mama, is he acting divorce? Is he being more attentive to you? I mean, is he making his intentions clear? And y'all, Leslie's looking all crazy, because y'all know Marcel was only, at least what they told us, Marcel was only getting himself involved with Leslie because Elon and the department were getting in trouble. I think it was with the mayor, right, y'all? Because their arrest numbers were not high enough. And so basically, like, crime is going on and y'all ain't doing nothing about it. And so one of the people they were trying to get was Leslie for running off the road, and also for that hospital incident with Laura. So Marcel had told Elon, do y'all remember that conversation? Writers, do y'all remember that conversation? That's who I should ask, because that was the whole point of Marcel getting involved with Leslie. He told Elon, leave it to me. I bet I can get her to talk. And so before we knew it, they was having sex all the time and all of that. And she still hadn't told him nothing. Matter of fact, in all their little rendezvous, not one time do I recall Marcel even asking her anything that would get her to open up about Laura and what part she may have played in that. So anyway, so like I said, Eva's questioning her, like, what is his intentions with you, Mama? And she even says to her, Mama, you deserve better than this. And I love the part where Eva says to her, Mama, I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm only trying to basically help you out by being honest with you, because nobody else is going to be honest. And y'all, Leslie says to her, a daughter should not be giving a relationship advice to her mother. And Eva says, maybe not, but somebody need to. And I'm like, that's right, y'all, because everyone has tried to tell Leslie to move on. So while they were talking, guess who comes in? Ted. And so he comes, Eva waves to him, they wave to him because he acted like he didn't see him, but he wasn't acting like he didn't see them. And so anyway, so he comes over and he's like, hey. And so Leslie says, ooh, your ears must be burning, because we was just talking. And Eva cuts her off and she says, right, y'all, I was just telling Mama about, the conversation you and I had. And he was like, so yeah, what about that? Are you going to go see a therapist? And she says, I'm going to hold off for right now. But he lets her know, if you change your mind, or if you need to talk again, you come to me. Y'all, how come Leslie talking about, and that extends to me too? And he's like, is your name Eva? Y'all, how come? I have to say, Keith did a good job, okay, during the filming of this episode. I think his script called for him to look disgusted, and he really did a good job. He looked disgusted. And so, he walks off and he says to him, I got to go, basically. I'm meeting Shanice for lunch. And when he walks off, Eva says to her, Mama, did you see how Daddy was looking at you? He was looking like, he couldn't wait to get away from you. Y'all, how come that doesn't faze Leslie at all? I'm like, you know what? See, this is what I'm saying. This is why Ted needs to go down. Well, he don't need to go nowhere. He needs to just call, Jacob. And he needs to have him put a restraining order on Leslie. That's the only thing that's going to stop him. So at this point, y'all, Shanice comes in and she walks in, and of course, y'all know we can see in the background how Leslie is looking, and she's staring over there, y'all, with a mean mug, okay? She looking mean as a big dog. And so they kiss and whatnot, and Shanice brings Ted up to speed about Bill. And guess what? Ted is basically like, that's it. Because he asked her how, you've had a, what has it been, a crazy day at the hospital? Because she's like, I'm going to need a huge piece of that peach cobbler or peach pie or whatever it was. And he's like, why? Did something happen? And she tells him, I caught Bill and Hayley almost getting on. He's like, that's it. Because I'm like, Shanice got her nerve when she and Ted had sex in this anyway. And he actually brings that up, y'all. He says to her, but I mean, basically based on us. And she's like, yeah, but we ain't heart patients either. And I'm like, no, it don't matter whether you're a heart patient or not. Having sex up in the hospital room or in an office is nasty, okay? And so y'all know Ted is trying to convince himself that he really is in love with Shanice. He's trying to convince himself that he really is all in on this relationship. So he tells her that, listen, he's ready to put his money where his mouth is. And she's like, what does that mean? And he says, I'm ready to meet your brothers. And she's like, what? And then so he tries to convince her, y'all, that let's move our relationship to the next level. You know, he's like, I got a nice smile. Basically, I'm good. I can meet them. And she's like, many a men have said that and basically got, right? And so Ted is like, he ain't gonna get got, y'all. And so they get to talking about that. And all the time they're talking, the way they're showing us on our screens, we can see Leslie looking at them. How come Eva says to her mama, you know, and Leslie talking about, child, they don't mean nothing. I'm like, you know what? She done seen them kiss. They over there talking and close and happy. And she says that means nothing. That basically he ain't got no ring on his finger and he'll get over Shanice. And so Eva says, like he got over you. So it's just crazy, y'all. No thing is going to stop Leslie from trying to get to Ted. Well, when Eva leaves out, she did seem like she got a little bit into her head because Leslie calls Marcel and she leaves a voice message. Marcel, this is Leslie. If you are interested in me, I need you to prove it. Put forth some damn effort. Take me out. Call me. Y'all, anytime a woman has to call a man and leave a voice message like that, right? We don't need to finish the sentence, do we? So anyway, so now y'all, let's talk about what Ted was doing before he went over to Orphe Jeans. Y'all know I'm not down for this storyline because I think it's quite silly. And yes, it is a soap. And in a soap, you know, the writing on soaps, the storylines on soaps are not supposed to exactly mirror real life. Duh! I know that. I'm just simply saying, you know, I have a problem with how some of our men are written, and I've not made a secret of that. Even up in season 1, I didn't. And so what happens is this. Ted, Smitty, Martin, Kyle, and Carlton, they're in the men's locker room at the country club because they just got through playing that charity basketball game. And so they're all trading barbs. You know how it goes, so I don't have to really recap that. They're just doing, you know, this and that and something else. And complimenting Kyle, Kyle complimenting Ted, Ted's complimenting Carlton. I'm like, you know what? So now you got her son, her son-in-law, his daddy's best friend, and another colleague. These 3 men are, you know, they've all screwed the same woman. 1 was married to her, and 2 were screwing her at the same time. You know, well, not at the same time, but you know what I mean. It's like, oh my gosh. And they're just all being so friendly because they're just, and I understand they're trying to write it so that they're saying, these men are just so emotionally mature. It's like, because it ain't got nothing to do with emotional maturity. It's just the DNA and nature of a man. Men do not like competition from other men. Okay, now a man don't mind if he's above the guy, but even then, it's a woman he's not taking seriously. A man who's genuinely interested in a woman, I mean, seriously, he would never stand for her having sex with another man and him. It's just crazy. So anyway, so I don't like this storyline. But anyway, so they're all giggling and sniggling, like I said, trading barbs. And then eventually, Kyle leaves, Martin and Smitty go home. Well, they go visit because Vanessa and Nicole are there too. That's another thing. They're in there having breakfast or lunch or whatever it is. And so anyway, so eventually it's just Ted and Carlton. And here's where Ted's mess gets started. He sits there. So they don't bother you? And Carlton's like, what? And he's like, I mean, him bragging about how he's going to go meet up with Nicole right in front of your face. See, that's how I know Ted is messy. It's not that he asked Carlton, does it bother you? That's a normal question. But when he's added, I mean, right up in your face. See, that's right. That's right. That is the messy part. You know what? I have to say this, y'all. Keith D. Robinson is such a better actor than Maurice Johnson. And, you know, I'm sorry. I know a lot of you don't want to hear that because y'all loved you some Maurice. And I agree with y'all. The man was fine, okay? The chocolate skin, the beautiful smile, the fine body. But on this particular show, he needed an acting coach, okay? But Keith plays this role so well to the point where I can barely stand Keith Robinson. That's when you know an actor is doing a phenomenal job. When the lines are blurred and you're like, wait a minute, is this really how you really are, Keith? Now, I know the man is not like that here. I'm just having a little bit of fun, laugh, smile, girl. Okay, don't be so serious. So anyway. But y'all, I'm like, Keith, today when I tell y'all, Keith was 1,000 with his acting when it came to being messy. I was like, I cannot stand Keith. And so anyway, so Carlton says to him, no, it don't bother me. And he brings him up to speed with what's happened. That, you know what, he says, I basically am the one who ended things with Nicole. And y'all, this is the first time that Ted is hearing that Carlton and Nicole are no longer dating. They're no longer sleeping together. They're just friends. And so they have that conversation. But guess what Ted does? How come Ted takes his hind end right after that conversation, y'all? See, Ted don't even wait. He don't wait a day or two. He goes right for it. He goes and he finds Nicole, or he sees her and Vanessa in the dining hall, and he goes in there and he asks and he talks to her, right? Basically, they go out and talk, and he takes her out in the vestibule, and he pretends that he's asking these questions under the guise of, I'm just concerned about how you're doing. How come he tells her, Carlton told me that, you know, y'all are not together. Basically, Ted is trying to find out information, get everybody's side of the story, basically. And so he's like, so I hope that you're okay. Are you okay? And she's like, basically, I'm fine. It was a mutual decision, basically. And he made it easy for me. And so he's looking her up and down. Wait a minute. You know what got me was how when Ted is, this is how good Keith is. When Ted is being nosy and being messy, he disguises it under concern. Like, I'm just so concerned about you. Anyway, so she basically lets him know, you know, she doesn't go off on him, which I was really surprised by that. She, you know, basically falls for his concern act. And she lets him know, listen, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm at peace and all that kind of thing. And he says to her, well, peace looks really good on you, Nicole. Y'all, listen. I don't care what nobody say. Ted still wants Nicole. And today, from what I could see from my TV screen with my two eyes, they still want each other, okay? So while he's looking her up and down, guess what she's doing? She's looking him up and down too, y'all. I'm like, you know what? We all know eventually the writers are going to give us a scenario of these two coming together. You want to know what I think is going to happen? Or rather what I hope will happen, and soon. So y'all know no relationship on a soap stays without challenges, you know, the conflict that makes it interesting. So there's got to be a plot building with these two, with Nicole and Kyle. So, because today when Vanessa told Joey basically that he won't have to have dinner with Nicole and Carlton anymore because basically Kyle is the man, I think Joey is going to, I don't know if Joey has ever met Kyle. Has he, y'all? I can't remember. But for certain, we don't know if Heather and Kyle have a connection. What I'm saying is there's no way that Kyle is not involved in some way, shape, or form in the Impaler storyline. Or like we were surmising together months and months ago, he could be Kenny and Nem's daddy. Okay, but then too, we know he said he had sons, and we've already met Noah, and we know he has one other son. So maybe that is now a throwaway theory, seeing as he doesn't, they haven't mentioned Kenny, and his brother that died. So if it's not that, which it can't be that now, he has to be involved in the Impaler storyline. So we know that Heather and Andre were lovers, but he couldn't have been the only man she was having sex with. And Kyle is a traveling, podiatrist. So it's like, or chiropractor, whatever he is. So it's like, there's just no way, y'all. I don't believe that Kyle is this squeaky clean guy who's in love with Nicole. I think he's going to be caught up somehow in the Impaler storyline, and somehow or another, Ted. And this might be the thing, writers, that redeems Ted for me. Ted is going to save her. And that's going to be the day that they get back together, because it's going to take a feat of heroism for Ted to get back into Nicole's good graces, even though she says she's forgiven him. And not to mention, y'all, I'm going to tell y'all this. I think the only real reason that Nicole began to try to narrow it down between Kyle and Carlton and go over and talk to her mama and ask for help is because she had talked to Ted first, and Ted told her he was in love with Shanice. And so I think these two are trying to keep up with each other, or they're trying to prove to each other that they don't love each other, or that they don't want to be back together. That's what I think is going on with Nicole and Ted. So anyway, so Ted was messy, and she thanked him for his concern and complimenting her on how happy, he is. And she said she was happy for him. We both moved on. We're both so happy, yada, yada, yada. This is why they're both looking at each other up and down. I'm like, okay. So yeah, so that's what happened there. So y'all, let's talk about now Martin and Smitty. So Martin and Smitty, after greeting Nicole, and they go home, and they're being lovey-dovey. Eventually Martin tried to convince Smitty, y'all, let's go to Costa Rica, let me book, and he's like, well, wait a minute, you got me right here, why do we need to book a trip? And Martin is talking about naked beaches and all this kind of mess. And he even suggests to him, because Smitty's like, okay, a congressman can't really be caught half naked walking down the beach. And Martin's like, that's right, so let me call Shonda or call their travel agent. He's gonna book it so they can just buy out the beach. I'm like, okay, Martin got that kind of money, y'all. I did not know Martin had that kind of money. But maybe since it's Costa Rica, depending on what beach it was, who knows, it may not have been that much to really rent it out. Maybe $50,000 at the most, I don't know. So anyway, so Smitty is like, wait a minute, why are you in such a hurry? We just had this family vacation. And Martin reminds him, yeah, that was family, but I'm talking about me and you, us as Weasons. And so y'all, guess what? Smitty just comes out with it, because Martin is getting suspicious, and he says, I got too much stuff going on right now, I can't go. And he's like, well, what? And he tells him, I'm thinking about that true crime podcast. And Martin's like, well, wait a minute. So y'all, Smitty begins to tell Martin how, yes, he did those stories on the Impaler, and yes, that helped some, but that didn't get nobody caught. And he was like, the Impaler is still out there. He sounded like Jacob today. The Impaler is still out there hurting people. Even though they've left the DMV, they're hurting people in other places. In essence, he's saying, I can't stand by. And, he says the essence of investigative journalism is to get the whole truth. And so he says, I can't stop, Martin, until the Impaler is behind bars. I'm like, if this ain't Jacob talking, I don't know what is. So, you know what, though? Y'all know I like when they pair Smitty and Jacob together, because they're my wonder twins, y'all know. And so I like it. I like that. So I love, and I'm hoping in the future that they give us more scenes with these two. And actually, I like when Kat and Jacob are together working out cases, because they make, a good team too as well. So anyway, so Martin has to be okay with that, Well, let's talk about Nicole and Vanessa. So like I said, they were sitting up at the country club, and they were in essence just getting caught up, just girl talk. Vanessa was telling her about Heather, because she, even Nicole didn't know that Joey had a sister. Okay, so she tells her about that. She explains that Heather is more of an extrovert than Joey, and maybe that's where their sibling, butting heads comes in. But Nicole is like, you know what? If you're saying that their relationship is so bad that they haven't talked in years before she came back into town, it's way more than that. It's probably something really, really bad. She's asking her, well, what is it? And Vanessa has to confess, Joey will not tell me. He will not tell me what it is. And so, y'all, Nicole commences to warning Vanessa. And she says something to her really key. She says to her, basically, if you trust Joey, and Joey is telling you to stay away from Heather, you need to trust the boundary that he's trying to put up for you. Y'all know Vanessa is so naive. She's like, well, she's just so nice and he just doesn't get it and he needs to give her a chance. And I'm like, you know what? Isn't that the same thing, the same whiny mess girl that Vanessa was saying when everyone was warning her about Joey? Well, he's so misunderstood. People just don't get it. I get it. It's like, girl, you don't get nothing but you're going to get a bullet. Heather is crazy, and you're going to get a bullet if you don't go somewhere. So we see Vanessa, y'all, traipsing up to the thing. Can I ask y'all something? I don't follow any of these people on social media, actually, any of the actors or actresses. And I will say, I don't know. And, I don't know when they filmed this particular scene today because I know they have callbacks and all that. But John Lindstrom is not looking that healthy to me. And I was just thinking to myself, I hope he's okay. Or maybe he's just, maybe he's working a whole lot because we know he had a book that came out a few months ago. And so maybe he's doing a lot of traveling. I know he had a role on General Hospital, but I thought I read somewhere that he and those people had worked it out so that he would film all his scenes so like he's not going back and forth between LA or wherever General Hospital is filmed and Atlanta. But anyway, I don't know. I was just a little concerned for him because he doesn't look like himself to me. Speaking of doesn't look like himself, I wrote this down. The body makeup that they had on Christopher Riley today was too much for me. I don't know. Maybe he has skin issues, and maybe that's why they had the body makeup on him because he was shirtless, for those of you who don't know. I will say that if it was a skin issue thing, then he didn't have to be shirtless because several of the other guys weren't shirtless. But if they're going to have him shirtless, I don't think, maybe it was the glare from the camera, but I don't think, or it looked to me like they just had the wrong shade on him and it was too much. So yeah. But anyway, so I hope John Lindstrom is okay. So anyway, y'all, here come Vanessa traipsing up in there, kissing going on. And y'all know, Joey and Vanessa play the same dance over and over. She pushes for more. He says no. She gets angry, walks out, and he begs her. I'm like, except this time she didn't walk out. And I'm like, okay, are we going to do this whole dance again? So I was really surprised that the writers gave us a whole different scenario when it came to them today. So she explains, she brings him up to speed on having lunch with Nicole and what they talked about. And Nicole's with one man now and all that. And she brings up Heather. And he's like, basically, leave it alone. Y'all know Joey gets upset when Vanessa keeps poking about, his sister. Because he didn't want her to know Heather is the impaler. Or at least that's what Heather told him, she was the impaler. Y'all know Heather may not be the impaler. So anyway, because Heather be lying, okay? So anyway, she's trying to push, and he's like, you know what, Vanessa, if this is a deal breaker for us, just go ahead and tell me now, because y'all know how Joey get when he get upset with her, right? And she says to him, basically, what we've got is too precious to throw away over a disagreement. And so he's like, you just have to accept that some things have to remain private. And guess what? She says she's going to accept, and she even tells him, okay, no more questions about Heather. Well, let's go back to Nicole and Kyle. Kyle now comes over to the table. This is before Vanessa left. Vanessa had greeted him before she went to see Joey. And he sat down, and he and Nicole got to kissing. By the way, he introduced her as his girlfriend to Vanessa. So he sits down, and they get to kissing and going on, like I said. And he tells her that Noah is playing live tomorrow at Uptowns. And he wants to invite her, to go with him so that they can support Noah. And she agrees to that. Okay, guys, I'm just looking over my notes. So just a second. Y'all, did I tell y'all that when Ashley and Hayley had gotten into it, when the security was telling her to get on the elevator, that Ashley told her if she basically keeps it up, she was going to have her permanently banned from the hospital. Y'all, I'm like, okay. Also, I forgot to mention this. After Hayley had left, Bill was saying to Ashley, right, all that right there was so unnecessary. Get my doctor up in here now. I'm going to go home. And she says to him, you know what? Naomi's going to tear this place apart if she finds out you put your health, you basically put your health at risk because you were trying to prove a point. And that seemed to calm Bill down. So we shall see tomorrow if Bill actually leaves Garland or if he, kicks up a fuss, but he goes ahead and he stays. Yes, I did miss a part. Before Vanessa traipsed over to Joey's casino, Joey was in there with the guy. I forgot this guy's name because, there's Randy and then there's this other guy who also works for Joey. He has him in there, and Joey is asking him to bring him up to speed on where is Heather? Where all has she been? And the man says, basically, I was at her hotel, and she went up there, and she didn't come out until the next morning. And he was like, you were in the lobby? And he's like, yeah, boss, I was in the lobby. He's like, what? Joey goes off on this man, y'all. He says to him, how on earth am I supposed to know what she's up to and why she's in town if you're down in the lobby? She could have been doing anything when she was upstairs. And you know what? I actually agree with it. I'm like, okay. But he did tell him at first I had my eye on the elevator and she never left, so I just went downstairs. And then I went home, he tells Joey. And then he came back the next morning. I'm like, what kind of surveillance is this? Because really, you're supposed to stay on the person constantly, or you're supposed to switch shifts with somebody. You're not supposed to go home and go to bed and then go. Anything could happen in the middle of the night. And maybe Randy was watching, but they didn't say all that. But anyway, so he tells the man, if you and Randy can't do what I've asked you to do, y'all know how Joey be making threats. Basically, I don't need either of you, and you're going to be out of a job. And the man apologizes profusely, which I'm going to have to say I didn't like that. But anyway, I didn't like the optics, shall we say. Need I say more? Anyway, and so I'm like, you know what? Why didn't Joey just... Anyway, I'm like, the bottom line is he knows he can't trust his sister. He knows that. He knows she's up to something. Okay, he told her, I'll kill you with my bare hands if you hurt Vanessa. Okay, that was the other day. But the bottom line is, if he really believes that she's the impaler, y'all, what is Joey doing? If he really believed his sister was the impaler, you think he'd just be having somebody follow her around? He'd be doing way more than that. Because he knows that Jacob and them are after the impaler. He'd be trying to get this girl to leave town and stay out of town. So anyway, so that's what happened on today's show. Today's show was pretty decent. It was pretty decent. I wanted to bring up something that happened yesterday because I didn't recap the show yesterday. I watched it, but I didn't recap it. Y'all, what did Jibri Horges do to himself? I was trying to figure this out yesterday because he looked so different to me when the show came on yesterday, which was Monday, of course. And I'm like, well, he didn't lose weight because he was always the same size. And I thought he looks like either his skin is darker. So did he get a tan? Was he traveling somewhere and he got a tan? I don't know. At first I thought, well, maybe his hair has been dyed blacker, which makes his skin tone look different. Anyway, I was trying to figure it out because immediately when he was on the screen, I noticed something was different about him. But it was so subtle, I really couldn't figure it out. And yeah, so there you have it, guys. That's the recap review discussion of today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow and we'll be reviewing Wednesday's episode. I got something special coming for you guys, but I'll be telling you about that on Thursday. Bye, guys.